So someone has died. Their soul crosses over into the spiritual realm. Now what? Want to find out? Keep watching. I love this topic. I think it's fascinating and a lot of fun to talk about. Okay, so you have someone who passes away. They leave their physical body. What happens with their soul? We have a lot of examples of what could happen and what does happen. And I'll start off with one. My mom's dad.
But wait, before you get to that, let me preempt that, right? So
Okay.
hold, as they say, hold the thought. Which, I know how you do that because your hand won't hold it, but...
I'll just put a pin in it.
Okay. The whole idea about people talk about their near-death experiences, right?
Right?
I've heard stories about individuals describing their experience about walking towards a light through a tunnel. We've watched a movie, which I think you're the one that brought it up, No Solar.
Right,
because
Astral
you're
City.
Sort of, right, you were sort of fascinated with it, with the guy that wound up in this not so nice place, right?
Uh-huh.
You see all these strange looking people, but they're obviously suffering.
Mm-hmm.
There are individuals that describe that when they get to wherever they're going, they see their uncle or their brother or a family member, a loved one.
Mm-hmm.
Some see angels. Dante, who's a very popular writer, he wrote about visiting you-know-where with Jesus, that Jesus took him to.
Oh.
He talked about the different levels, right?
Okay.
Him visiting down there.
Uh-huh.
That's a popular book people read. I just want you to know that based on what I've been told by El Moria, Saint Germain, no such place exists physically.
You're talking about the HELL.
That or any of these other places. For example,
Okay.
the Catholics, when we're Catholic, I always
We
want
are.
to say that.
Mm-hmm.
We're taught, or we were taught since we were kids. You know, I went to Catholic school since grade school, we call it, where I come from, infant one, because we're British.
Mm-hmm.
That's preschool, they call it here. We call it infant one, infant two. From then, because you have to take religion, right? I'm in a Catholic school,
Okay.
and we're taught about purgatory.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and what is purgatory?
Purgatory is that in-between place you go to go through the punishment for your sins that you committed while on earth.
Okay. Now I ask you to explain that, because growing up, I did not believe in that, and every time we had nuns that taught us, I would just shut that out. I wasn't even paying attention to that. So if you were to ask me what purgatory is, I really couldn't give you a good explanation. I did not pay attention to that. I was good at that. That when I didn't think something made sense, I just shut it out.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I've told this story many times. In grade school, they had us read this book, Wind in the Willows. I always remember it because I really didn't like the book. And I wouldn't read the book.
Why?
Because I never believed that animals could talk. And the entire book is written about these animals that are having conversations with themselves.
I've never read it.
And I thought that was the most ridiculous thing.
Okay.
Now keep in mind, I'm like in second grade, right? But this has always been the way that I think. Of course, I found out the book is a really good book. I still don't know what the story's about, but it's supposed to be a very good book.
Okay.
Anyway, so that's why I asked to explain what purgatory is. Now, where is that leading to?
Uh-huh.
It's leading to the point that when you pass on, and now your soul is going to go back where it's supposed to go back, which is heaven.
Mm-hmm.
You might have an experience, but that experience is all created by you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it's based on your experience and your expectations. So, if you're Catholic, and you don't think that you've lived a good life, you've been not too nice to your neighbors and things like that, then you'll be expected to go to purgatory.
Right.
So then, what do you think you'll see?
You'll see people suffering, and you'll see just miserable lives all around you.
Exactly. All right? Because that's what you expect.
Mm-hmm.
And normally we're programmed by the religion, by our religious upbringing, by our parents, right? Even if you live a really, really good life, as in you behaved yourself, but then you had an experience that you didn't think was very nice, as in it was your fault. You blamed yourself for something. Maybe you saw your dad hit your mom, or your I'll switch it around and say your mom, even though I couldn't remember this. Your mom left the family, right? And it's just you and your siblings and your dad, and your mom just left.
Uh-huh.
You might have blamed yourself for that. That you did something wrong, you were a bad kid.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, when you pass on, you feel guilty about that. So because you don't think you're a good person, do you think you'll wind up in heaven? Even though you might be looking forward to being in heaven. You're like, oh, I've been a good person, I'll be in heaven. But in the back of your mind, you're like, but I drove my mom away. You get it?
Right. So you don't think you'd be worthy enough to go there, so you'd probably stay wherever you were.
It will be a place of punishment of some kind, some scary place, because you believe that's where you deserve to be. And there are other experiences you could have, right, that just make you feel unworthy of being in heaven. And even though everything else has been fine, but that one experience is holding you back, because you know in the back of your mind, as far as you're concerned, it's your fault, and you did something wrong. Now, after saying all that, now go ahead and share your experience, because I hope you can see how it ties in, right? So people can understand.
Okay. Well, going with your first example about like it being a Catholic, we had a family friend who recently died a couple months ago, and he was in his mid-90s, and my mom called me and said, will you please check on him, or have Ken check on him, since my husband does that better than I do. He's the only one who does it at this point in time. But anyway, so my husband checked and found out that he was still here. The man was still here, and he was very confused, and he couldn't understand what was happening, because he knew he didn't live a really good life, according to him, but he wanted to leave where he was. So my husband worked with Archangel Michael, and they explained to him what was going on, what he was experiencing, and he ended up going with Archangel Michael to where he needed to go. That's one. The second
why
one,
was he confused? See, that's the most important part.
Being the Catholic that he was, very strict traditional Catholic, he couldn't understand why the afterlife was not what he was told, not what he was taught.
Okay, and that would be what? What was he expecting?
He was expecting purgatory, where that punishment area that you go to atone for your sins.
Because he thought that he deserved.
Right.
Okay, so that's the part I'd like you to explain to our viewers, because just telling a story doesn't help. It's the mindset behind why they're there.
Got it.
Make sense?
Mm-hmm. So, he crossed over. Now, when I was starting out this video, I was talking about my mom's dad, and he died before I was born. And it was only recently, in the past few years, where he came through, and he only came through because he kept seeing other relatives of ours going and talking with Ken, and then they'd go into this light. So he wanted to know what was going on. And it turned out he'd been here on the earth wondering why no one could hear him, no one could see him, no one would communicate with him, because he didn't know what the afterlife was supposed to be like. He didn't believe in anything. So everything was explained to him. He crossed over.
And when you say he didn't believe in anything, would you please elaborate?
As far as I know, he didn't have any kind of religious upbringing that really stuck with him and formed a belief system in him as to what to expect in the afterlife.
Now, is this the grandfather that your grandmother was married to?
Well, both of my grandmothers were married to my grandfathers.
So which grandmother
This is my
one?
mom's dad. So yes, that would be my mom's mom.
And what was she like?
Oh, she was very feisty, and she would tell him, "You're going down to poof because of the way you treat me and the way we do things." So That's
So
all he knew.
what
So
did you- exactly.
that was his only expectation, from what my grandma would tell him. You're going down there. That was it. But that didn't happen. So he was like, well, what's going on?
All right. So that's that one. You have another story? Why?
Yes. My Uncle Richard, he just died a couple, maybe 3 years ago. And when he was getting ready to cross over, he was still here physically, but spiritually he kept traveling, and he'd see the relatives and he'd go around the relatives, but he just wasn't ready to let go of the physical body. But finally when he did, he went with his wife and aunts and uncles that I have and other family members that were there to greet him. All different
How does that fit
experiences.
into? So what was his
Because
expectation?
you said that people might see their relatives.
Right, but what was his expectation? Do you
Oh,
remember
he
what
was-
was going on with him? I remember. What
He was
going on.
afraid to die.
Exactly. Why was he afraid to die? Why was he holding on?
I don't recall.
Because he was not Catholic.
Oh, that's right.
And
He was
was
Lutheran.
told by
Mhm.
your family that that was not a good thing. I'm putting it mildly.
Right. Yes, yes. The Catholics in my family are very strong, and they will tell you if you're not Catholic, you're going to go down to you know where. Yes.
They strongly believe that, and
They
they
do.
will condemn you for it.
Mm-hmm.
So here he is, very nice person, very
Mm-hmm.
lived an exemplary life, but he was Lutheran.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the family was concerned, that's a really bad, that's not even a religion, it's just a bad group, I guess.
Right.
So he wasn't sure what to expect, and that's why we had to work with him.
Mm-hmm.
We actually had to prepare him while he was alive. That all happened while he was alive.
Yes.
That came through. And once, I think your mom helped with that, right?
She did.
Right.
She would go and have conversations with him, and the relatives who were already crossed over would meet with him, and it finally all got sorted out, and he took off.
Yeah, it took a while.
It
And
did.
it took at least over a month
Oh, yes.
to convince him that he was fine.
My mom kept saying, is he ever going to go?
Right.
I have to go to his house again.
Yeah.
I mean, he was
But it-
91.
But
Just go.
it just goes to show you that it's all about what you expect, based on what you don't know or what you do know.
Right.
So anyway, so now you have that experience, right?
Yes.
You pass on, and whether or not you experience, whatever you experience, whether you see Jesus or Muhammad or a Prophet Muhammad, or you see Purgatory or some burning bush. I don't know
Whatever
what
you
see.
experience.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Just know that that was your expectation,
Mhm.
and that's why you experienced that. Now, I stress that because that means that now going forward, now that you know that that was your expectation, based on what you knew then, if you've had a near-death experience, you can change it now. Because you know that going forward, there is no such thing as purgatory or this place where you have to go punish or get punished or whatever that is. You are going straight to heaven. A beautiful place. So that's what you should expect all the time.
And it has many levels.
That's correct.
Oh.
But each level is good.
Yes.
It's not like there's a bad level. You're not going to be let's say there's a level 1 through 200 and you're at level 1. And they don't whip you there or anything like that. You don't starve. It's still very nice, okay? Probably has limousine and all you can eat buffet and you never get full. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so now we go to one of these levels of heaven. Now what? What happens?
Right. And of course, you're going to be taken to that level of heaven that you have excelled to, as in you've developed to that level,
Okay.
based on the lessons that you have learned in every embodiment, right?
Right.
And then when you get there, we're going to assume that you're not necessarily master yet. You haven't bounced out your karma. You'll meet with the, well, first of all, if it were a traumatic life, you might have to go and rest for a while. Let's say, for example, you had a lot of illness, or your last days were where you were on life support, things like that.
Okay.
Depending on how advanced you are, you might have to be put into what's called a resting place.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a cemetery, but you go there and then you rest, because now you have to transition from the physical realm to the spiritual realm.
So kind of like a hospital where you
No.
go, no? Just a
It's
resting
not-
place.
There's a hospital, and that's the difference.
Oh, okay.
The hospitals are for individuals that are really, they don't want to change it. They're not learning. their lessons. So that's different. We won't talk about that here.
Okay.
But this one is where it's just a resting place. You
Okay.
just go and your soul rests. Because those memories that you've had of the current life, those slowly are being taken away so that you can get back to focusing on your next embodiment.
Got it.
Or not taken away, but you learn how to deal with them. It could be so traumatic that you don't want to come back. No, I don't want to go back down there. So that's what the resting place, that's where the resting place comes in. So it could be a few days, it could be, and again, when I give time, it's just so that people have a point of reference, right?
Right.
Because in the spiritual realm, there is no time.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a week, it could be a month. Some people really require a long time to recover from that physical experience that they had.
Okay.
Once they recover from that, then they're shown, okay, this is the life you just left. Now take a look and tell us what you would like, or what you like about it, what you didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
So if you notice, the karmic board, and you have your guides and teachers there with you, they're not telling you what you did wrong. It's not like, we're taught about Judgment Day.
Right.
You've been judged.
And they tell
There's
you,
no
you
such
did
thing.
this wrong, you did that
Exactly.
wrong, you did that okay.
That's not how it works at
Okay.
all. You're really looking at your life and the choices that you made. And when we say choices, we're talking about what other people might not consider something that's important. For example, one used to be scared of the dark.
Uh-huh.
That's a choice. And then probably ask you, so why were you scared of the dark? You see, that's a big deal. That you
Okay.
should not be afraid of anything. If you know that God is all-powerful and He's always with you, then why are you afraid of anything?
Mhm.
See how that's a big issue?
Right.
And that's the lesson you have to learn, not to be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And so they ask you, so why were you afraid there? Oh, all right. So what do you want to do? Do you want to work on that again, or you want to put it off till next time? You might say, I want to add that to my wish list of what I want to learn when I go back. I have to really focus on not being afraid of anything, knowing that I can handle anything because God's with me. So it works.
Uh-huh.
And they go through the whole list. Now, once that is done, they might say, okay, so now, what do you want to do? What purpose do you want to have that will help you with all this, help you learn all these lessons? So that's when you choose like a career, or you choose a family, or a spouse.
Okay.
Because you're creating that environment that will help you to develop into the person you're supposed to in that embodiment that you're planning for, based
Okay.
on the lessons that you have to learn.
Ah.
Right? So you already know that, for example, you chose me as your spouse. You already know that I was going to scare the daylights out of you. You already know that when we met, you'd be afraid of me because I don't like you, like you said.
Uh-huh.
You already knew all that, but you're like, oh, no, I want him for my husband. Like, are you sure? That guy's a lot of trouble. And he said, I can handle him. I'll tame him. They said, okay. See, that's how that went. And then we met. And you probably went, why are you going to go be born all the way over there? And I made you
Folks,
regret
he's
it.
really making it sound a lot more dramatic than what it was. I don't think it was that way at all. It's all loving over on the other side. They don't talk down about anybody or anything.
See, but then you probably go like, when you found out that I'll be born in a different country, not in America, like, wait a minute, but I want to be born in America. Why are you going over there?
Yeah, how are we going to meet up?
Exactly. Will you just be quiet? We're going to meet up anyway. Okay, so just behave yourself. See, and that's how it goes. All right. So then you're put into the different schools, so you can be prepared. Oh, okay. This is what I'll be. This will be my career. This is what I'll be doing. Okay. You have to learn about financial services. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn about insurance and how that works. Then you go to the school for that. You have your teachers there teaching you and preparing you. So when you come, like sewing, you're still very good at sewing. So then you have to go to a school there to learn how to sew. Where they're singing and playing the instruments, which I didn't go to any of those because I'm really bad at all of those. You went to those things, yeah? I didn't go. I was probably playing soccer in heaven. Like, when did your husband decide to come learn his lesson? He's always playing soccer. I don't know. He has free will.
Again, my husband is just putting on this dramatic performance for you so you get an idea of what it's possibly like.
Right? So once that's done, you go to them and then you say, I'm ready now. See, they don't tell you you're ready now. You go and say, I'm ready now to embody. I've chosen my parents, there will be my family there. I know what I need to do. I'm ready. Then you're allowed to go and kind of scout them, right?
Okay.
You already know where they live, right? You already know what the house looks like, the neighborhood. You're looking at the different schools. You've decided what school you'll be going to. You've already decided all that before you're even born.
So that's what happens after we've died, and from the physical, our body's dead, but our soul's still alive. So
That's
we
right.
cross over. We go through maybe a waiting period, resting, and then we start learning about the lessons that we have that we need to work on, and then we start choosing what will happen in the next life when we come back.
That's right. And also the situation that you want,
Okay.
so that you go through those lessons. And then after that, you re-embody. That's pretty much how it goes. And then, of course, by the time you re-embody, because physical body, you're not limited. When you're a spiritual being, of course, there's a lot that you know, because you can see a bigger perspective. Once you're into that physical body, a lot of things that you learn up there you've forgotten now, because the physical body is very limiting by space, by time, and by the physical body itself, because it's a dense entity.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, I think that answers the question. If you have any other questions that have come up or want clarification, make sure to let us know. Remember to subscribe and like this video. Join the Facebook group 190 Vision to connect with others on the same journey. Get help by visiting our website 190vision.com. Support the 190 Vision mission by clicking on the donate button, which is at the bottom of each page of our website.